Hi, everyone. I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for streaming with us. Heavy snow and freezing rain caused a travel nightmare on highways in Texas and Tennessee as a winter storm dumped more than a foot of snow in parts of the central U.S. More than 5,000 flights were canceled yesterday alone, the highest number of single-day cancellations in over a year. Ice-covered and downed power lines left more than 300,000 customers without electricity. The storm's now moving through the Northeast, bringing heavy snow, ice, and freezing temperatures from New York to Maine. The U.S. added 467,000 jobs in January, well over analyst expectations. The unemployment rate also ticked up 4% from 3.9%, while job gains in December were also revised much higher. President Biden is set to speak at any moment about that report. We'll bring that to you live when it happens, and we'll also break down what those numbers mean in just a moment. And Travis and Gregory McMichael, two of the three men convicted of murdering Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia, have withdrawn their plans to plead guilty to federal hate crime charges after a judge rejected a plea deal reached by prosecutors. Arbery's family spoke out against that plea deal, saying prosecutors made it without consulting them. Arbery's mother says that that deal would have given the McMichaels one more chance to, quote, spit in my face. She said, after murdering my son. The trial moves forward on Monday. Plus, the global supply chain worries are now taking aim at Valentine's Day. Due to the pandemic and poor growing conditions, flowers are in short supply. So if you can find them, they also might be more expensive. And I wanted to quickly mention that we are wearing red here at ABC News today to support the American Heart Association's Go Red for Women initiative to fight cardiovascular disease. But we begin with that seemingly good news for the economy. U.S. employers shattered expectations, adding 467,000 jobs in January, well over expectations. But the unemployment rate increased slightly to 4%, up from 3.9% in December. I want to bring in ABC News political director Rick Klein, along with business and economics correspondent Deirdre Bolton, to unpack this a little bit. And Deirdre, I want to start with you. Not only did the numbers for January, really shatter expectations, but reports from December and November were also revised much higher. How significant is this increase in hiring?
Diane, it's really significant, and I'm glad you pointed out those revisions upwards. I don't know that we've ever seen a statistical anomaly like that. We'll also admit that data gathering during this pandemic is a little harder, but you're so right about the previous 2 months. So it's essentially showing you that the labor market is shrugging off the doom and gloom of Omicron. This is a really strong signal. It's going to mean a lot to the Fed, which we can talk about in a minute. I just want to go over some of the groups, and I wrote them down here, that saw the largest amount of hiring. So leisure and hospitality, transport, warehousing, retail trade, professional services. So gains across the board. I spoke with a few economists this morning, and they said, listen, it seems as if the U.S. workforce is adjusting to working during a pandemic. This is a huge signal of strength. One other thing to note is that we saw hourly wage growth really grow. So if you look at the month of January, it grew 0.7%. That is essentially 5.5%. It's actually 5.7% higher than this time a year ago. So another indication that the Fed is more than likely going to raise rates in March. Why is that important? Because it affects all borrowing that we do. Car loans, mortgages, any business borrowing, it makes it more expensive. It means that the Fed thinks that the U.S. economy is healthy enough to put the brakes on a little, Diane.
And Rick, how are the Biden administration's policies thought to have affected the economy?
Yeah, Diane, this is fascinating because I think the Biden White House was among those that thought this would be a disappointing number. They were already explaining all the factors that might go into this. So I'd expect when we hear from the president later this morning, he's going to celebrate this and draw a through line from the stimulus package, the recovery package. There is an unprecedented amount of new government money that's been coursing through the economy, helping employers bring people back into the workforce, helping employees adjust to the new reality of the life. And these reports also show how that new reality is setting in. New numbers, new record numbers of people working remotely, new infrastructure that's in place to support that in so many businesses across the country. I would expect that the president is going to claim credit for what's already passed in terms of the COVID relief package early last year, the infrastructure package that passed in the middle of last year or late last year, and use it as an argument for trying to revive other parts of his social spending package to say that there is more work to be done in the economy. Obviously, obviously, the drag of inflation is going to harm perceptions around the economy. It is striking. You know, we did a poll on this just last week, and more than 3/4 of the country felt like the economy was not in a strong place. And I don't know that there's numbers that come out from the federal government that are going to change that. So that's one thing that I think you're going to have to see a little bit of a moderated tone around when President Biden talks about this.
And now, Deirdre, analysts were expecting an addition of just about 170,000 jobs. I mean, that's nowhere near the number that we got. Why were they so far off?
Well, Diane, it is tricky to collect this data during the pandemic, but you're right. I mean, the range of what was expected. I even spoke with people who were expecting a subtraction of 400K, a subtraction of 500K. I mean, if you looked at the range of possibilities between Wall Street's top economists, honestly, there was really a lot of running room. I want to pick up on a point, if I may, that Rick just mentioned as well. While we are amazing at counting the number of jobs, we are significantly less amazing at counting the quality of jobs. And I think that is what we are going to see a little bit more over the next few months. I am very curious to see how President Biden, of course, addresses it. It's a win for the administration, but I think we have a few more data points to go before we can officially say, okay, the U.S. economy is back in full force, Diane.
All right, Rick Klein, Deirdre Bolton, great to have you both. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
And we have some new details on the U.S. Special Forces raid that took out the leader of ISIS. We now know the mission was planned for months, and we're learning more about how it unfolded and the steps taken to try to avoid civilian casualties. Chief Global Affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz has the latest.
The compound that housed the ISIS leader crumbled and abandoned after the Pentagon says Haji Abdallah blew himself up along with his wife and 2 children as U.S. Special Operations Forces closed in on him.
In a final act of desperate cowardness, he, with no regard to the lives of his own family or others in the building, he chose to blow himself up.
The U.S. commandos came in by helicopter after months of intelligence gathering and intricate rehearsals. Once on the ground, shouting through bullhorns for the people inside the 3-story compound to evacuate. That is when the ISIS leader detonated what the Pentagon said was a suicide vest. But that did not end it. The Pentagon saying an ISIS deputy and his wife on the floor below began firing on the U.S. commandos. They returned fire, killing the husband and wife. At least 1 child was also killed. The U.S. was able to evacuate 10 people, 8 of them children, local Syrian groups later taking them to safety. But the Special Forces did have to blow up and destroy one of the U.S. helicopters on the ground after it suffered mechanical failure. As for the ISIS leader, his body was left behind, but the teams did search the compound for any possible planned attacks.
I can assure you that he was every bit as evil and every bit as committed to attacks on the United States and our partners.
And even though the Pentagon believes that all of the casualties were caused by the ISIS leader, except for that of his deputy and his wife, the Pentagon is still going to take a closer look at exactly what happened. Diane?
All right, Martha Raddatz, thank you. And the Olympics officially kicked off with the opening ceremonies today after a long-awaited journey for many of these athletes. Our friends at 538 got an exclusive interview with U.S. Olympic speed skater Mame Baini. She opened up about her mental health struggles, saying she had an abusive coach on the U.S. national team. But after changing her training environment and rebuilding her confidence, she says she's ready to go for gold in Beijing.
Mental health is very much overlooked within athletes because we're shown as like strong and powerful and always happy and always smiling, and there's no way that there can ever be a bad day. But for me, I had like 3 bad years.
In 2018, Mame Baini became the first Black woman ever to qualify for the U.S. speed skating team. But she almost didn't make it back to the games this year after struggling with a coach she found abusive.
This time around, qualifying for the games means a lot more just because I went through so much. This is the very first time I've ever been in a very deep hole. It got pretty bad. I didn't want to talk to anyone. It got to the point where I didn't want to skate anymore, so being able to cross the line and make the team felt really, really good, and I'm extremely proud of myself. So I started skating when I was 5, figure skating first when I was 5, and then my figure skating coach, who was also a speed skating coach, she told my dad that I was going too fast for figure skating. I should try speed skating, and I did. Turns out that I really like it.
Mame's an athlete known for her bright energy and personality. At least, that's her attitude until she starts skating.
I can just leave all my problems out on the ice. I think it's just a flip of a switch kind of thing, you know? Like, as soon as I'm on the line, I'm just like, all right, I'm here now, and I gotta do what I gotta do.
By the time she hits the starting line, she's become her alter ego, a personality she's named Anna Digger.
Yeah, so Anna is an email address. Anna Digger. I made the email address when I was like 8 years old. I was talking to a teammate about it before Olympic trials in 2018, and she was just like, how funny would it be if that was like your alter ego, because you always look so mad whenever you're skating, like you look so focused and serious.
When you see her in almost any other setting, the smile is painted across her face, and then when you see her at the line, you see a look of intensity.
In 2018, U.S. Speed Skating hired someone new to train its short track athletes, a Dutch coach named Wilma Boomstra, and Mame felt her skating environment change radically.
There's definitely a limit of like pushing. Like if you push your athletes to be great, they're gonna be great. But if you push your athletes to like hate themselves and like hate skating and hate whatever they do in life, if like a coach is like telling you, you kind of suck right now, and it's just like, wait, what? No, you should not be like saying that. You should be like encouraging me. I guess my triggering point was just basing my feelings on how I did in practices and stuff like that. And so that is just like not healthy.
An investigation by U.S. Speed Skating from last year found that Boomstra used bullying behavior in the form of shaming athletes in front of others and name-calling.
I did not want to get out of bed. Anna was very much like harbored in. It got to a point where I was just like, I am not getting out of bed right now. Like, I am in a very depressive mode and mindset right now, and it's not good for me as an athlete or even me as a human, so I needed to ask for help.
In 2020, Mame started seeing a sports psychologist, and crucially, she began working with a different coach, moving from the national team to a less elite developmental program called the FAST team.
That is the one thing that I regret not doing earlier, just because the first day I was on the FAST team skating with them, it was just like I could breathe, you know, and I didn't have to go to training like dreading it. The coach that was on the national team did not really provide me with the help that I needed to get better as a skater, and I knew that if I moved over to the FAST team, the coach there would definitely do that and treat me like a human, which is always nice.
In March 2021, U.S. Speed Skating fired Coach Boomstra based on performance, and Mame has returned to training with the national team. When we spoke to her days after qualifying for the Olympics, she said Anna Digger has re-entered her life.
Actually, this weekend was the first time in such a long time where I felt like my old self, and I felt like I was like fighting, you know, like I was fighting to be first and not like settle for second or third or fourth or anything like that. And so that was like a really good feeling, and I definitely felt like Anna was like in there. Outside of skating, whenever Anna does come out is whenever I'm like taking a stance on like a situation or a problem in the world. The first time I ever posted about Black Lives Matter was when George Floyd passed away. That's definitely when Anna came out. And I would post like almost every single day in the month about resources that people can go and support Black Lives Matter. I've realized that I thrive off of knowing that people support me and love me. Whether or not I do well or not, they're still there because they want the best for me, and they just love me for who I am as a person and not as a skater.
All right, our thanks to 538 for that story. Coming up, the new allegations of sexual harassment against Washington Commanders owner Dan Snyder. More on the graphic testimony before Congress after the break. Welcome back. There's a new allegation of sexual harassment against the owner of the newly named Washington Commanders. Former female employees of the team testified before Congress about what they call a toxic workplace culture. Amy Robach has the latest.
The NFL says it is reviewing new sexual harassment allegations against Washington Commanders owner Dan Snyder.
He left his hand on the middle of my thigh until I physically removed it.
That allegation, part of graphic testimony before Congress Thursday, 6 former employees speaking out on previously surfaced accusations against the team's top executives over the past 2 decades.
Under Dan Snyder's leadership, women were used as sex objects and tools to increase sales.
I was told to wear tight outfits to events, so clients had something to look at.
I experienced many work firsts there. First bonus, first promotion, first public humiliation, first sexual assault.
In a statement to ABC News, Snyder apologized for those who were mistreated, saying, with the exception of the new allegation leveled for the first time today against me personally, these issues have all been thoroughly investigated, reported to the league, and remediated by the firing of the responsible individuals. As to the new allegation, I deny it categorically. The women urging the NFL to release the results of a 2020 investigation in which it fined Snyder $10 million.
When the investigation of the air pressure of Tom Brady's football concludes with 200-plus pages of a written report, but 2 decades of sexual harassment concludes with nothing, the NFL is showing us their complete lack of respect for women, for their employees, and for the culture of our country.
An NFL source telling ABC News there is no change on the release of that investigation. This just 9 days out from the Super Bowl and on the heels of another scandal. Former Miami Dolphins coach Brian Flores filing a bombshell racial discrimination lawsuit against the NFL Monday, where he argues 70% of the players in the league are black, but of the 32 NFL teams, only 1 currently has a black head coach. The NFL saying the claims are without merit.
Its regard for women and its commitment to racial equality, both of those have taken just a huge hit. These are not the storylines that the NFL wants people to be thinking about, talking about in the run-up to the Super Bowl.
And the NFL said in a statement, quote, "We are grateful to the witnesses who again demonstrated courage by sharing their painful experiences." Our thanks to Amy Robach for that report. And for more on all this, I'd like to bring in host and legal analyst at the Law and Crime Network, Terry Austin, to help us unpack this a little. Terry, thanks for being here. How damning is this testimony, and especially these new allegations?
It's very damning because all of these witnesses, 6 of them testified that the atmosphere at the NFL, and particularly on this team, the Washington team, is hostile, and it's a hostile work environment. And they are saying that executives, particularly Dan Snyder, is allegating against them and is using all of his power and his influence to actually sexually harass them by touching them and by doing other things to make them feel as though they cannot come forward with any of these issues. So it's very damning, particularly after they've already had a settlement, a personal settlement with one individual, and they've had a fine. So they're still saying that it's going on.
Now, the women are urging the NFL to release the results of a 2020 investigation. Could the NFL actually be compelled to release that, or is this more of a public pressure campaign?
Well, I think right now it's a public pressure campaign, but ultimately, if this should go to trial, and it may very well go to trial because this is an employment discrimination claim and it will be discoverable at that point. At this point, Dan Snyder is saying that it is up to him whether or not the report is released. The Wilkinson report is actually a report that was done after a 1-year investigation, and they certainly found out that there was very, discriminatory behavior going on. And so that's probably one thing he does not want to have made public. But if it's in lawsuit mode, it will be public because it is absolutely discoverable.
Now, do you think it's a coincidence that the team unveiled its new name the same day this testimony took place?
Well, it's interesting. Commanders is a word that, I think means that we are in charge, etc. But one of the witnesses actually used that word. And to me, it seems like a coincidence. But I think the Oversight Committee wanted to look into these allegations. And it just turns out that at the same time, the NFL was actually changing its name. They've been under pressure to change their name for quite some time now because obviously their name was discriminatory and offensive. And so they finally did come out with the new name. But I think it is a coincidence that the Washington Commanders just now announced their new name. So far, it hasn't had a good reputation.
And so now, meanwhile, the league is also facing this racial discrimination suit from former Dolphins head coach Brian Flores. And he goes so far as to say the NFL in general is run like a plantation. So what do you think about his allegations? Does he have a case?
Well, his case was a damning complaint. It's a class action, and one of the things that has to happen if it gets certified is other people have to join. And we have heard that there will be other people who have expressed that they too have seen discrimination. So far, they've been trying to follow the Rooney Rule, which says you have to interview individuals for particular executive positions, including coaching positions, and that this is just a ruse, that they're not really doing it. And so I think he has a very good case, and I think if others join, it'll be an amazing class action, and hopefully it will result in some changes where we have numbers better than we have today. Right now, there are only 1 or 2 black coaches, and so I think it should be something that is investigated, and changes need to be made as soon as possible.
All right, Terry Austin, always great to have you, Terry. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
And coming up, we are introducing you to the social media superstar making us all smile. Our Feel Good Friday is coming up right after the break. Stick around. Welcome back. It's time for Feel Good Friday, where we bring you a little good news heading into the weekend. And today, it's all about a woman named Joy, which is quite appropriate because that's the exact emotion that she brings to TikTok viewers everywhere with her dance moves. Will Gans has her story.
She's the social media superstar, known on TikTok as Move with Joy. Racking up 1.9 million followers thanks to her amazing dance moves and that incredibly infectious smile.
I am a 43-year-old homeschool mom who puts on bold outfits and dances in my backyard.
Music has been a part of Joy Tanksley's life forever.
I was one of those kids who danced before I walked and talked. I was in show choir and I was on the pom team. And then when I went to college, it was just like, well, that has to be done now. It's over.
But the universe had other plans. Joy posting one teeny tiny TikTok in 2019.
It was an accident. It was like I just stumbled into it. So
stumbling right into the spotlight.
To have people actually comment that they were feeling down and now they're feeling better, it's unreal. It's the coolest thing ever.
Joy also making videos for folks of different dancing abilities, from her easy dances to seated dances as well. One TikToker commenting, "I'm disabled and a full-time wheelchair user, and this made me so happy. Never stop doing this for people."
The joy that you see when I'm dancing is real. I hope it can be a reminder that our joy always matters. You know, it's never insignificant. It's never wrong.
Joy never wrong. Will Gans, thank you for that. And you can find more feel-good stories at goodmorningamerica.com. I'm Diane Macedo. Thank you all for joining us. ABC News Live continues with news, context, and analysis. Stay with us.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.